So hi everyone, and welcome back to the very special edition of the Focal Plane podcast that we're doing today, set here at St. Wilfrid's Hospice in Eastbourne. And the care that goes on here is extraordinary. And it happens at moments that are some of the most important. And I'm really very privileged today to be joined by the CEO of St. Wilfrid's Hospice, Colin Twomey.
Hello.
Thanks very much for your time. I really appreciate that. And I'm really looking forward to hearing some of your insights into, what it's like to lead a place like this, number one, but also some of the things that you're looking forward to in the future and maybe some of the challenges that you've been facing, just because I imagine, and you tell me if I'm wrong, but I imagine that there's a whole plethora of things that you hear and see, whether they be conceptions, preconceptions, assumptions, some right, some perhaps need some tweaking in terms of what you come across.
Yeah.
And we understand CEOs as boardrooms and numbers and meetings, but what is it like for you when you walk into the hospice? What is that job for you?
Yeah. It's a huge privilege to start with, but you won't be surprised when I say no 2 days are the same. In fact, no 2 hours are the same. But that brings with it the real energy and excitement of the job. Because I think first and foremost, I've got to be that voice to represent the hospice and represent the patient and their family's voice, but also represent our workforce, our volunteer workforce as well. So that's, if you like, the immediate responsibility. I think for me, there's also the recognition that the community that supports us so much expects a lot of me, quite rightly.
Yes.
And there is that ambassadorial aspect to it too, that really it is so key to making sure that the hospice actually thrives in the future.
Of course. And absolutely. I want to talk a lot about that as well. But just you mentioned about the expectation that's kind of on your shoulders. Let's learn a bit more about what those shoulders are. So I understand that you've got a really strong background in oncology from your previous background in training and your career to date. Tell us a bit about that so we understand the person behind the title, if you like.
Yes, sure. So I'm still a registered nurse actually, and after I trained, I quite soon went into oncology, cancer nursing. This is going back some time. So cancer care at that point wasn't as successful. That it wasn't so much a chronic disease as it is now.
Sure.
So there was a lot of palliative care in cancer care, predominantly where palliative care sat then. So I developed that interest because it's very much a very person-centered area of healthcare, which really drew me in. So I developed my nursing career through cancer care and then into palliative care, predominantly in a hospital setting. Always working alongside hospices and others in that process. And then prior to coming to St. Wilfrid's, I was working in a large Macmillan hospital team, leading that team and deputy leading the cancer services. So that sort of, if you like, was a springboard to come into St. Wilfrid's.
So what was it that drew you towards that? Because that sounds like a very deliberate career trajectory. There's I'm interested to know what cogs were turning for you that drew you to say, right, this is oncology is the field for me, particularly as you say at the time, knowing that there was what we would now call palliative care, and I'm sure it was then as well, but under different auspices, shall we say? What was it about that really made you gravitate there as a nurse, but also as a leader?
I go back to that fact that it is a very person-centered area, person-centered specialty, if that's the right language, and very much involves the family and people around the person as well. Now, I'm not for a minute saying that across the spectrum, health and social care doesn't do that. Of course it does. But there's something about cancer and palliative care that is embedded in that. It's part of the foundations. It's a given rather than an additional. And it's really, that being really interested in individuals, in people, being able to have that privilege to hear and be alongside people, and when they're probably in the most difficult times of their lives. And there's a lot of reward that comes from that as well. I mean, I don't think I would challenge any healthcare professional to say that they don't get personal reward out of these things as well. I think that needs to be part of it.
Absolutely, critically so,
But going into the more leadership roles, again, I really interested in people as staff and as volunteers. So that extends beyond my interest in the patient and family. But I recognise, and if I'm honest, I didn't recognise at the time. I've recognised in hindsight the inequity that was around. So even when I worked in cancer care in the early days, not as in Florence Nightingale, my early days.
Your early days. Nearly.
Although they're not as far away from Florence as I would want them to be. There was definitely postcode lottery for cancer treatment.
Sure.
You had to be in the right place at the right time, type thing. And going into Macmillan roles then brought me front and foremost into the charity interface as well. And, Macmillan continued to do amazing things, but the fact that our hospital team at that point was pretty much only in existence because a charity had funded it. And I, at that point, when I went into the more palliative care end, was the only nurse specialist in a large teaching hospital. And I'm delighted to say that has improved and moved on with a lot further needed to go. But so there was an element of recognising the inequity, the problems with access that people have. That's gone on more as I moved away from cancer care into palliative care, which still very much exists now, is that inequity then just based on the type of illness that you have, because we still see of our patients we support, 60+% of those are people with cancer. Absolutely necessary, but there's so much need for people with other diseases, other illnesses. So it's that ambition to open access, to be fairer, to actually make people's lives better, if you like, that has driven that leadership bit, because we all need a reason to get up in the morning.
Absolutely, yes.
And some days we need it more than others.
Especially when we have to come and record a podcast. Oh, God, the motivation for that.
It's like, dear, I've got a bit of a sore throat. Should I work from home
We'll put
today?
a cardboard cutout and I'll just dictaphone it.
It would be great. No, I'm delighted. And anything that can help get the message out there is brilliant, because, there's so much work still to do.
And just picking up on just a theme that I just heard a little bit from what you were talking about. You mentioned that you at one stage you were the only nurse specialist in your field at a large teaching hospital. Yeah. And you've also, correct me if I'm wrong, you've been CEO since 2023?
Yeah, 3 years, just.
So I'm trying to picture the two Colins here, right? Yeah. So there's one Colin who's gone, okay, I'm the only person here in a teaching scenario. There needs to be more, but is this Colin thinking, I have a lot of opportunity to shape things in the way that my experience has taught me is the right way of doing it? And if I've assumed that correctly, just tell me if I'm talking rubbish. If I've assumed that correctly, have you taken some of that Colin into St. Wilfrid's Colin? And what have you done to help address those issues that you talked about, the inequities, the provisions of care, the understanding what your community is like? What have you seen and been able to implement in that respect?
I definitely, the previous Colin is still very much alive and kicking. It's an interesting dynamic, though, because it's that getting that balance to give people, quite rightly, the assurance and confidence of that ability and that set of skills, because quite rightly, and I absolutely would never want it to be anything but, people do focus on the fact I have a clinical and health background. The other side of that is that people sometimes think that's all I've got.
Of course.
I remember in my early days as CEO being a supporter event, and it was a lovely evening event. It was really great, and somebody saying to me, "Well, you don't have to worry about the money side or anything like that, do you? And I graciously responded to that, because clearly I absolutely do need to be thinking about that, because we are a charity, and with that brings an additional level of challenge and responsibility. So, having worked over the years prior to coming into role, I didn't, being very honest, have a career ambition to be a CEO. I did recognise that I enjoyed and thrived with senior leadership roles and board level interaction. But actually, I pay credit to my predecessor for really opening my eyes to the art of the possible, and then recognising, actually, if you want to make a difference, the place you can make a difference is as a CEO. And that motivated me to put myself into the ring for that. Very delighted that was successful. So, but subsequent to that, it's recognising the breadth of, nobody has all the skills to do any job. It's about having good people with you in the team, and recognising your limitations as well. Not having that arrogance that you can do everything, because, as we all know, there lies risk. And
of course,
So and then being able to make that influence not only locally but regionally and nationally, and that's, I really enjoy that. The national dialogue about end of life care now is greater than it's ever been, and I'm. So, going back to one of your points is so the kind of, so what? I know that's not what you said, but...
No, but that's exactly what I'm kind of getting to, right?
It's that, when I started at St Wilfrid's in 2012, we were in a very different environment. We hadn't moved here yet. My predecessor times two, Cara Bishop, who is the most amazing, innovative individual, made this happen. So we've been able then to develop our services to meet more people's needs and to really grow that, and been able to diversify more as well. So our community engagement, our compassionate communities, our volunteer roles that we've got in communities have expanded our reach, which is brilliant. And we've raised awareness of death and dying more as well, because, I know it's a hackneyed thing, but death and taxes, the only two things in life that we know are going to happen, but we still refuse to talk about death. So, that for me feels like we've edged a bit further forward.
And absolutely. And what do you feel? Do you feel there's been any one shift that you've seen that's been responsible for that, or have you yourself had a hand to play in that from what you've seen, or your team in that regard?
We have, because since, so for the last probably 10 plus years, we've worked, our vision is to raise awareness for about death and dying. And I think we're sitting in a beautiful environment now with a cafe at the front door.
Exactly, yes.
And the fact that people will come here to enjoy social relationships and good food and coffee, etc., and break down those barriers by stepping over that door, and then say, the times I've heard, I never expected this. And then that opens up that conversation about death and dying by virtue of being in a hospice.
Just simply being there, yes.
And that spans ages as well, because I've met some great young people, teenagers who come here because of the cafe, or because their parents or their grandparents come here.
Sure.
So I think breaking down those barriers is absolutely critical, because long after I've gone from this role, but possibly gone from this life as well, there'll be more work to do. So, we've got to start. And also opening up to that different generation. So our young clinical volunteers scheme that we've had, which gives me immense joy and pride that the team's done that, and seeing people, grow in their confidence over a period of weeks is brilliant. And they're seeing such intimate, challenging scenarios, and it's part of their life. They're growing in front of us, so that's brilliant.
I mean, it's such a great thing you provide. I mean, I was hearing from Ruth earlier about that, and just the way that people can experience things that are very close to the bone, that can be very challenging for most of us, but actually in an environment that they are able to process that and be supported to understand what that means and help them develop their own skills. It's just a wonderful initiative. Like hats off to you guys for doing that. Like, it's a brilliant thing.
It is amazing. And I won't lie, we weren't the only one at the time who were thinking about that in the hospice world, but we were one of the only ones.
But you still have to take the leap to do it. Like, the ideas can be out there, but you have to take the gumption to go, we're going to jump on that. That takes a hell of a lot of foreplanning, foresight, and just desire and drive to do it.
And the appetite, the openness. And I think that, for me, that's about the culture of the place, and about the safety, the psychological safety, if you like, of people to be able to take some risk, because it is a risk, it's calculated and thought through. But for me, going back to an earlier conversation we were having, I need to take the responsibility to set the culture, but I'm not going to do that by myself.
No.
And I think the great team around me have been part of in fact, fundamental to the fact that we will take those risks and really get great things out of them, like the Young Clinical Volunteers scheme. Sometimes it is a bit of a leap of faith, but
well, no, but I think, but you touch on something really important. You talk about the culture of the place, and the risks that you take that are calculated. I mean, ultimately, I'm hearing and I'm seeing, and I have seen from events that I've been at for St. Wilfrid's, there is that palpable nature of supporting each other is there. Like, you feel it. Like, it's almost like tension you could cut with a knife, but a good thing, right? And it's when people feel that support, they know that their decisions will be backed, but they also know that sometimes that decision is not going to go the right way. It's not going to go the way that we would hope it to. But I know that the reason why I did it, the thought of mind of why I did it, that will be supported. They'll know that actually I was doing this for the right reason. Okay, we can learn from those things and we can help tweak that. But if you have a strong ethos and culture that permeates through like that, the psychological safety, like you mentioned, is there, and that just helps your team to grow and understand that, hey, we own this. We own a big chunk of this now. And we feel that ownership and responsibility to make it better and help each other to make it through that way. And you hinted at something just now with all the work that you do in the community. And I was speaking with Sarah, of course, about the community fundraising, just a hell of a lot of work that her team, the events team, do to just absolutely knock it out of the park. But also, one of the things that would be really interesting to hear about is, we're in this building, but actually a lot of your work, the core work, the clinical work, the care, happens outside of these walls. So tell us a bit about that, and what do people, have you had any people making assumptions around this, or is there any messages out there that you really like to get out?
It's a very strongly held myth that hospices only provide care in a hospice, in a bed. Potentially in an outpatient room as well. But And actually, 2/3 of what we do is out in the community, in people's homes, in care homes, and that is focused on the fact that most people would wish to die at home. We know that people, that's their preferred choice, but we see a lot of the time that when I meet people, and I'm often meeting them here in the hospice building, to be fair. That consistently they are surprised at the amount. They've often got an idea that we do something outside these walls, but not to the scale and the breadth. Because we've got, every member of our care and professional team that we have here in the building can also be seeing somebody at home, which is incredible. And so it's really that for me is a really important message for people, because actually, the symbolic nature of a building such as St Wilfrid's Hospice is really important. Of course it is. And the inpatient unit that we have is beautiful. It's superb. And I know that people have really great experiences at the end of life there, but most of it's at home. And I think, I as a dying-to-wall hospital clinical person before I came here, I was always aware, clearly, discharging people from a hospital setting, the importance of community services and the challenge of community services as well. But it was really only when I first came to St Wilfrid's and I had that opportunity to actually get out there and do stuff and see that is where stuff really happens.
And what were the big learnings from that for you? What really stuck with you?
I think it's the art of the possible, really. And, that whole... of course, if you've got the infrastructure around you, you can really do quite complicated, challenging things in the most... I've got so many memories and stories, but I can remember visiting people in caravans, visiting people in tiny... like fourth floor flats that you can hardly get up yourself, let alone an ambulance crew. But actually not being fearful to say, this is the patient's choice, this is the family's choice. How can we make this work? How can we make this work? So, beautiful scenarios where people, so it may not have been fully health and safety compliant, probably not the best thing to say, but
we've been saying that all day. That seems to be the other theme of the day. But yes,
it is going that extra mile, isn't it? But the experience of seeing a family or a loving couple who can just be, if it's a mattress on the floor or it's a sofa bed in the living room. And some of the wonderful, slightly bizarre scenarios that you just experience, but they make that real, and they help the person who's left in bereavement as well. And being able to, deliver complex medication in the home setting, above and beyond what people probably would think as well. So really, really, really fantastic experiences to be alongside. Very humbling in many respects.
Yeah, absolutely. And have you experienced or seen from your teams on the ground, for example, any challenges towards delivering that care? Because as I was talking to Ruth before, there's things can turn on a dime, can't they? So in terms of someone's health, well-being, clinical situation, and to be responsive to that is key. So have there been any challenges that you've seen around that, or that you're anticipating or are working around?
There's a lot of challenges with what we currently call out of hours. People could argue out of hours is a construct that we put together because it suits us to work 9 to 5, because dying doesn't have an out of hours.
It doesn't, indeed.
But in those evenings and weekend times where things are so skeletal in the services that are out there, they're the times that I think are the darkest for people, and that things can go wrong. we haven't been able to fund a fully responsive 24/7 visiting service. It's just impossible without statutory funding. But we have been able to establish a really good helpline, and that literally is a lifeline as well for people, because if they're in their own home and they just don't know where else to turn, if they can pick up the phone to somebody who says, "I'm here, it's okay, tell me X, Y, and Z," and then help them to get the right person in, because our colleagues in our NHS and other services are equally challenged. So I'm not for a minute saying that people aren't absolutely wanting to do the best thing. They are, but it is those times where things can fall down. And if we can, clearly we would want to stop crises happening by planning and putting a care plan in place and putting the right people around. But we know that life is unpredictable, and it's those times where we need to be able to respond, because that's the time you don't want somebody defaulting to a 999 call and ending up in one of our emergency departments. So I think that ability to respond, we've got a long way to go still.
And I mean, taking you on that point, I mean, one of the things that is really vital that I know you guys do is around educating in the community. So teaching people in care homes, teaching all sorts of allied healthcare professionals to understand how they can best manage those scenarios, or do what they can to help things, facilitate things where they need to be done, where you would have otherwise historically perhaps had a visiting team going out. But that's really powerful when you empower those individuals to help, and then everybody in that scenario feels better, because do you know what, I've been equipped with some skills because of some of the teaching I've had from St. Wilfrid's, or some infrastructural changes have been put in place, and that's something that absolutely should carry on and grow. I mean, why shouldn't every clinician or healthcare professional have a degree of feeling confident and comfortable around something which has been a specialist area, but something that is so integral to being in the community, as we've been talking about. And that's a great thing, and I just wanted to draw attention to that, because it's not just about, to me, when I'm hearing this, it's not just about not being able to necessarily do things in a crisis, but having everyone around you being able to help in some way and being facilitated to do that better through work that you guys have done. I think it's incredible.
I absolutely, and that element of hospice care, and indeed wider end-of-life palliative care, but that element of hospice care in enabling others who, quite frankly, are the direct caregivers, to be able to do that with an additional level of expertise and confidence. And I think hospices are in a real turning point. I think we're at a critical point in our history, because there has been that expectation on one level that hospices will be there for everyone, and that is not a reality, and I don't think it ever will be directly. So going back to your point, if we can't directly see everyone, and I'm not suggesting we should, hospices should know exactly where we're going to bring the benefit, and where we can do things that nobody else can, so that we're doing it right. We're fulfilling our charity responsibility as well, because people give us their they fundraise for us. They need to know we're doing the right thing with that. But I think the challenge that has always been there but is getting greater now is, again, we can perhaps say we can provide education and training. It's whether people out there can actually give the time to access it. And equally, many work groups, so a lot of our healthcare assistants, for example, in care homes and others, are very mobile. So once you've trained a group of people, they may not then be that group of people who are there 3 months later.
Sure, yeah. See what you mean.
So I think it's absolutely, we've got a real responsibility to share our expertise and learning so that everyone gets a bit of it. But that challenge will forever be there, and part of my role must be to influence the whole system to raise that awareness and that problem so that it's there, because there are so many competing problems.
No, absolutely,
People need to continue to have good maternity care, and they want to have their elective care properly. So they don't always want to think about dying.
But like you say, you have to advocate for where you sit, and that's but what is so helpful for that is the support that you provide for everyone else, because it just shows the value of, oh wow, okay, this is making a big difference to how we can care for our people in the community, whether they're in care homes or at home or district nursing teams, whoever they may be, and that's a wonderful thing. And you talk about this turning point, and I'm sure many will know, and if you don't know, it's something you'll very easily Google. There are financial challenges for hospices specifically as well, and there's been every hospice in the country has mentioned this to some degree, has affected them to some degree. Services have been shaped in response to that. How has that been for St Wilfrid's? What has that meant for you?
I think it's been really difficult, really challenging. Interestingly, the 3 years that I've been in post have been the most difficult 3 years this far, I will say, for the hospice sector. I'm a realist as well as an optimist.
I was going to say the cause and effect.
But it's good to get it out there, because somebody will put two and two together. No, but I can't be responsible for the whole national picture. I mean, I'd like to say I've got a lot of clout.
But not quite national clout.
So not quite. But we just this week, we know that 2 out of 5 hospices in England are planning to make cuts in services, and that's a lot of.
That's massive.
It really is, and that would be unthinkable a few years ago, and a short few years ago as well. And most hospices are managing a deficit budget. Going back to the, beyond the care part of this role, is that making sure that actually we're viable and we can continue into the future. Which absolutely I'm passionate that we can, but we've got to adapt and change. So we can't just keep doing what we've always done. We need to do things differently. We need to look at how we can work in different ways with other partners, and how we can make sure that every pound that fundraisers raise is going to the patient. So I think what I haven't mentioned so far is the assisted dying conversation that has also become very much a national conversation over the last 18 months. And that has shone the light on people's experience at the end of life as well. And we need to be really engaged in that conversation, because as hospices, it's very much part of the area that we're in.
Yeah.
So, and as we all know, our world is more volatile than it ever has been. So I think the landscape is shifting a lot. I've been around long enough to be one of those naysayers that said, "Oh, we've been around this before, we've been around this before." I wouldn't be one of those people, of course I wouldn't, but I truly believe we've never been here before. This is a moment in time. So I think we've got a huge responsibility there, which is exciting. I'm not shying away from that. We can do great things for people now and in the future, but it's going to be a challenging journey.
And like you say, there's so much. We're at unprecedented times in so many walks of life. That everybody in whatever it is you're doing, whatever industry, be it healthcare or otherwise, you're having to understand the world around you on a minute-to-minute basis. But like you say, with that comes opportunity.
Opportunity, absolutely. Yeah. And you know, I've used that myself. Even when we need some of the language that we've routinely used. Has become, it doesn't have the same currency anymore, does it? And I'm constantly trying to think about different ways to say things that, you know, like unprecedented, whatever it might be.
Exactly.
So that people actually understand, well, what does that actually mean? Because you might just be banging on about that because you want to raise awareness
or deflect, you know, from something. Yes.
But I think, and I'm not suggesting I've got the answer to that, but it's very much in my mind to be able to articulate that more to people so they can really understand, well, what does that mean? And how can I be a part of this movement to respond? So yeah, lots of work to do.
Yeah. And with, you know, you talk about the language that we use and some of the things that you're saying and the messages that you're giving out. And I'll say firsthand, you know, having seen you speak at various different events, you know, the underlying tone there, the things I take away from what you say is, hey, do you know what? Right now we're celebrating the joy of what we bring. And we're celebrating the people on the ground who, you know, tell us how winning is done. They show us that, you know, the compassion is everything, the care is everything, and that's a guiding principle for what you do. But that brings our community so much closer together. And I was, you know, when I was speaking to Sarah before about some of her, fundraising challenges that she's been facing, at the same time, we're seeing the community do some wonderful things. And a lot of that, of course, may come from the fact they've had their own experiences with the hospice, but also just that clear messages of we're really working with you for the future and we're excited about it. There are challenges, of course, and they're not insignificant, but and I don't wish to suggest in any way, shape or form that they're not very, very difficult to overcome. But I love that philosophy. Like I love the ethos that you present there because it just shows that never-ending hope that you and your team have, that you're going somewhere, you've got a vision for it, which I think is wonderful, and that should be applauded. It's amazing.
I think it's, as you're just speaking there, it was just brought me back to one of the earlier questions about what, paraphrasing, but what does it mean to be a CEO? And I think that moment, that being in the moment, and you're right, we know that our deepest support comes where people have experienced St Wilfrid's Hospice. But equally, they're then, if you like, are connectors. So they will have friends, work colleagues, families, etc. And so that in the moment is really important. I think for me as CEO, I recognise my responsibility is also to take a step back and look further. And ultimately look about the time after I've left this post and St Wilfrid's Hospice as to, well, what's the next thing coming up? What do we know? What are some of the knowns or the potential that I've got to start working on now so that, you know, people in years to come will get that good end of life care? And I think that's a really, and again, a really fascinating and interesting dynamic. And I think, you know, my colleagues are superb at that connection piece with people, whether that be a nurse who's giving care or whether it be a fundraiser who's working with a supporter. It doesn't matter. It goes across the span. And they're focused right on the why, on the now. And I've got to be responsible for also focusing on the you know, the bit beyond as well.
Yeah, because you've got to provide that direction. You know,
absolutely.
You know, and what that vision that people need to rally behind is something that you're always going to have to be a step ahead of yourself to understand.
Absolutely. And be prepared for the shocks and the unknowns as well. So it's interesting balance, that one.
And on that then, so is there anything, and I promise neither myself or anyone will hold you to this, but is there anything that you're looking at in the future that you're really excited about, that you're hoping or looking to come to fruition or working towards at the moment?
There's a lot. I've talked a lot about the extraordinary context we're in at the moment, the turning point, the whatever I call it. And with it, you know, that genuinely brings a responsibility to ensure that the hospice not only sustains but thrives.
Yeah.
And we are in the midst of a 3-year strategic program to make sure that we return to financial balance and that we've got a firm basis to continue to meet need into the future. And on some levels, that doesn't sound so impressive or different. But my goodness, at the moment, that in itself is a massive achievement.
You've got 1,000 moving parts that you have to balance and juggle. Then tomorrow it's something else.
And I think, but the bit that we've got, I and my colleagues have got that responsibility because we're working at breakneck speed. The pace of life has changed, hasn't it? But I'll stick with St Wilfrid's because that's the bit that I've got a bit more, hopefully, a bit more influence on. The pace is fast, but that gives a lot of opportunity with it as well. We need to do things differently. So before coming in here, coming to talk to you, Sam, I was talking to a colleague about AI note takers.
Yes.
Because I know, both through personal experience and through hearing from our teams, you can see a patient and have a brilliant hour with them, the most amazing connection, and then spend at least another hour, if not more, writing that all up.
All down. Yes.
And to me, that is, in this day and age, just not acceptable. So it's that digital transformation, it's that transformation of our care that means that we're actually able to respond to more people or to respond to people in a better way. And I think all of that really excites me. And the wonderful thing about this, going back to you know, as a CEO, you know, there lies arrogance if you think you know everything and you can do everything. I'm excited by the art of the possible. I want people around me to tell me how that might look. The experts that are coming through. And I think that's a real possibility there. So I do think that the NHS, I know this sounds a little bit, but the NHS 10-year plan, I'm going to sound like a politician now, aren't I?
Every CEO has to, it's fine.
I've got to believe that's got to offer us a different way, because again, I think, the difference now is it's not if, it's must, because there is no alternative.
There is no alternative.
We've actually come to the end of that kind of, the what is it? The bank of parents, they call it so I think, and hospices are more involved in that at a national strategic level than they've ever been. That policy level, it just wasn't there 5 years ago. So if I can play my part in that would be brilliant as well, because that's real stuff.
I mean, the fact that, as you say, hospices are in the conversation now where they just previously were not.
They were nice to have. If anything, and I may be challenged, but anything they were seen as just, nice whingers, because all we seem to ever say is we haven't got enough money. And, that's a reality. And we've got a responsibility to say that. But we've got to also be responsible for bringing the solutions as well. I'm not sure my colleagues over the way in our NHS hospital would say, oh, yeah, I've got loads of money. I just don't know what to do with it. So we're all in the same boat.
But that's how you, as you say, that's how you thrive rather than survive. You look towards those solutions. You understand, okay, fine, I have my lot. This is where it is. I'm going to do my best to influence that. Of course I am. That's a hugely important part of this entire conversation. But fine, what can I do with this? How can I innovate with this? Because that's what's going to inspire people to come along with you. That's what would, the like you say, the polite whingers across the road that you may, hospices may have been viewed as before, I don't know, but that's not the messaging that you're giving out. That's not what's coming across loud and proud and clear from not just these walls, but outside and everything that you do. And that rings true. That's great.
And that responsibility is palpable, I think, not just for me. I mean, but we've got that responsibility to help, to enable people to understand it, and then they can choose to disconnect with it, you know? But if they don't know, they don't get that choice.
It's like zero awareness means that you can't even take a step forward, backwards, left, right, whatever.
I know, people quite rightly saying, well, if you told me about that, I'd have done something about it.
We're screaming about it. Gosh. Well, on that then, so on that topic of screaming at the top of the rooftops about this, what is the one thing that you wish people to take away from this conversation? Or what's the one message that you would love to get out there?
Hospices are real partnership players.
Yeah.
And it's the only way we will do it. So I would say we, St Wilfrid's, that is, I'm sure my colleagues will say the same out the far, we will never stand alone in our silo. We need to work apart. And that partnership can be with the NHS, with social care, but it can also be with a business. Or with a group, a community group. So it's not the traditional thought of working with the hospital, for example.
Yeah.
We will never, ever do this by ourselves. If anybody thinks that, I'm sorry, but, it won't work.
No.
So, and there's a raft of stuff that comes with that, because we've then got the responsibility to be a good partner and bring to that partnership the best of us. So, that I think is what I would stick with.
Yeah, no, that's a great message, Colin. Thank you for that. Because, right from the beginning of our conversation today, when we were talking about where you've kind of come from to be here, and one of the phrases that you mentioned was, people, look at me with my clinical background and assume that's all there is.
Yeah.
But what you're bringing with that is the huge strength of your conviction and knowing actually what is key and what is important, and never losing sight of that. But like you say, getting people around you that will, are the right facilitators to help you move that vision forward, that fill the gaps.
Yeah.
And like you say, working in partnership, not just with your team, but the outside world, the other players in the game. That rings true to everything you've been talking about today. And we see the fruits of that. We see it's in front of my eyes. I see what happens when people come together and do something amazing. And long may that continue. I'm sure it will. I see nothing. I've heard nothing today from anybody that suggests to me that there is not 1,000% fire in the belly to make that work.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think our staff and our volunteers are absolutely our enablers. I know that as you were speaking there about the clinical background, the thing I keep coming back to with people if I'm helping them to develop their skills or competences, it is about communicating.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter whether that's with an MD of a corporate business or whether it's with a patient who's just about to take the sort of last few days. So it's that human communication.
It is. It's the emotional connection, right? Yeah. I mean, that's what we remember when we have our conversations with people. We remember how they made us feel.
Absolutely.
And that translates to every conversation, like you say.
Yeah. So good people out there.
Brilliant. Colin, thank you so much for your time. I've really loved hearing actually some of your own personal challenges, but also the exciting things that are coming out of here, and a lot of that, which I know you keep thanking your team for, and of course you should, but you've been a clear linchpin in a lot of that. So thank you for that. And, long may this thrive. I'm sure it will. And I know you're going to put in some great things for, like you say, when your time, whatever that guise may be, starts to shift. But I'm really grateful for the time to have a conversation with you about this. It's been great.
Oh, thanks, Sam. I've really enjoyed it. And
brilliant.
Thank you for bringing the conversation.
Excellent. Guys, thanks so much for checking this podcast out. And of course, if you've been moved by anything we've talked about today, or just want to learn anything more, or how to support the hospice, please go onto their website for more details, and I'll keep that in the description below.